Welcome to Flat Earth Debate, Uncut and After Show. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they premiere, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Speaking of patrons, I'm going to do a quick shout out to all of you who do support me on Patreon, so a massive shout out of thanks and appreciation to Christophe Fournier, John Travolta, JMails24, Yu Unamento, M, Iron26, Endless, Flat Earth Sage, Golden McKiernan, Phoenix Rising 86, Retro Bill, More Books, Cannabear, Fibre Oats, Bogey, Michael Kahn, Rob H, John Case, Patrick Gunnels, Will Brax, Mel B Styles, Troy Shuker, Harry Blade, Mobile Max 777, Neo the One, Rob W, Open Minded, Reese Pound, Del West Watson, Maria Neelands, Unbelievable Productions, Blue Ridge Ranger, The Real Gabster, Abraham Mohammed, Adrian Quintana, Skeptic 936, Life is Short, Texas Mike, David Wayne Foster, and Dank. So another massive thank you to all of you for supporting me on Patreon. Now I will hand over to whoever is in Gilded and G+, and you can enjoy their dulcet tones while I set up for today's live show.
The pre-show's a good time to get the boring stuff out.
Yeah.
Catch QE last night?
I did watch a bit of the QE show. I got up to, I can't remember where I got up to. About an hour in, I think.
I always enjoyed the pre-show the most.
He had a show.
Yeah, 5 hour show.
Misunderstanding of science, right?
He's pulling apart an Anthony Riley versus some astrophysicist or astronomer or something like that. And the guy was just... It's almost like he was talking past what Anthony had to say and his own questions to Anthony. So at one point he asks Anthony how to define something. Anthony starts getting into the definition of it or whatever, and the guy interrupts and then starts explaining how the heliocentric model can explain something that he's just asked Anthony to define. You're like, what's going on? He's obviously just got an agenda and he's wanting to talk about a particular subject, so he asks Anthony to define it so that he can then move forward and explain how it's working in the heliocentric model. You're like, okay, fine, whatever. Also, I watched Anthony sit patiently while he waffled on forever, and then as soon as Anthony's response starts coming, it's immediately met with no. Well, can you do this, that, and the other? Right in the middle of his third sentence. Right, all right, okay. This is why they want neutral platforms. So they get endless time to waffle with someone saying yes. The moment you, the flat earther, starts talking, you'll get spoken over. Like they claim happens here. Of course, when we interrupt, it's because of a non sequitur fallacy or a red herring, or a burden of proof reversal fallacy, or a whatever else they use. Begging the question.
You know, the same thing happened to me on McToon's channel. I had like 25 minutes of hearing Ruhif's presentation, and then I didn't even get a full sentence in before I got interrupted.
Right. That's what, and they told you it was a neutral platform, I don't doubt. Because neutral to them means we get to waffle endlessly about our belief, affirming it for all of our audience, and then the moment you challenge it, we shut you down. That's neutral to them. When they come here, spew a load of fallacies, and the moment they get spewed, they get pointed out, they don't like that. They call that Fundy muting, or they call that Nathan's mute button. Like what? Having your fallacy pointed out to you immediately? Yeah, you don't like that. You need your 20 minutes of waffle to keep your audience engaged with their affirmation bias. And then when there's any challenge that might seemingly undo your claims that you've made for 25 minutes straight, yeah, you're going to damn well shut them down immediately. You need to be in a position to do that. They all do. That's why they really despise me. Because I've created the flat earth position here so we can put our points through without them getting ripped to shreds before they've been made. Not with logic, not with anything decent, but with fallacy. Or calling us stupid. Another fallacy.
Yeah, it's pathetic. Is the only way I can describe it.
It is. That's fine. Yeah, I can still say the same thing I've always said. My attitude hasn't changed, which is the door's open. We're here daily declaring how wrong everybody is about their belief in a globe that needs a flat Earth to be declared. Now, if you want to come in and say you're wrong, you feel free. If you want me to come and help you give your audience a bit of confirmation bias about their globe belief that they've got waning at the moment because they've come across someone like me, then no. You can pay me for that.
Yeah, the reason I brought that up about gravity the other day is because, someone asked a question in the comments and I thought it was a good question. Like it doesn't make gravity any more real or a downward bias exist, but it is a good question,
It is. That was one of the things I actually put a comment on QE's video about when the guy starts talking about mass attracting mass and nobody's disproving it. QE's response was, how about you start proving it? But it's been out of date for about 107 years. My attitude's been, well, maybe I can debunk this on the spot. Does gas go down, go boom, boom? Because if he's describing it with mass, which is, as I say, QE's objection to it, define mass, fine. But if you want to use it in substitution of mole or inertia, fine. As long as we know what you mean when you say the word. Next question. Does oxygen have mass? Oh, it does. And it's attracting to other oxygen. Or is it just randomly flying around in all directions? And when it encounters another gas, it certainly doesn't attract to it. It bounces off it. Yeah, these notions that they hold about gravity are just ludicrous and out of date. We shouldn't be more clued up about their nonsense than they are. But that's the whole point, isn't it? Keep them, generally the general public, in ignorance of what gravity really is, so that they can retain their high school and below education about it being a mass, attracting mass force that keeps us attached to a ball. When it's not. It's the bending of space-time in a fourth-dimensional pseudo-reality.
Yeah, I think the ball part is the real killer for gravity. If it's what keeps you held to a ball, whether it's a force or a pseudo geometry, if you don't live on a ball, then what are you talking? You're talking about Narnia.
Yeah. Talking about the gas lamp and how it burns and what fuel it uses in Narnia. And how you're going to qualify that exact answer for something that isn't real, doesn't exist.
But it all goes then, doesn't it? As soon as you've not got the radius, everything disappears then. The whole caboodle.
At best, you've lost your entire paradigm. Yeah, that's right.
At best, you've lost the fundamental premise of your entire paradigm. Yes, it's hilarious.
I don't know which show it was on, John, but I was talking about you specifically in regards to, I think it was Toon or someone similar, using the old proto fallacy. I say that because it specifically references it in this context to the elevation angle argument. But yeah, it was Mage, it was Mr. Sensible, reclaiming, rehashing, reusing, recycling. Sheesh. His Mage claim that you go up high and see the horizon. I'm like, I won't rehash it, but I took the audience through your story in terms of discovery of the lack of acquisition of any physical measurements of a sphere Earth. And then went on to point out your namesake and why you've got it. It's like, we've only got one horizon. You don't suddenly get in a hot air balloon and see a different horizon when you go up high. It's still the same horizon that we've debunked with the Black Swan. There is no physical Earth curve horizon. Doesn't matter how high you go.
That's what I was telling my brother when he was over my house. He thinks you're going to go up high and you're going to see Earth curves.
Yeah, and with the magic trick in place. So when he says that, I know instinctually, without even asking, that he means he's going to see a left to right curve in his peripheral vision. Correct?
That's correct.
Right, but that's not how Earth curve's qualified. Earth curve is qualified as a physical geometric limitation to your view at 1.2 times the square root of the observer's height in feet. That's Earth curve. A horizon that blocks things. From foreground to background. Background obscured by the physical limitation called Earth curve. That's nothing to do with left to right. Now, it's implicit that you would have that, but that isn't how it's qualified mathematically.
I tell you what, you will never get Neil deGrasse Tyson to publicly state that, though. He is just awash in ambiguity.
He's a genius magician. He needs the audience to perceive the idea of going up high and not seeing it bend in your peripheral vision because that stuff's flat, so that they can realise that the mathematical qualification for Earth curve is physical geometric obstructions debunked by the black swan. But you need to convolute it, so that in some ways people think that you might or might not see left to right bending, and if they ever went forth to educate themselves, they'd realise, oh, the maths doesn't quite work like that. It's how much the blockage of a boat or a building works, with a physical hill in the way.
Well, the interesting thing is left to right bending doesn't mean anything anymore. You know, it can bend left to right. Who cares?
Yeah, it doesn't mean
that
anything.
Doesn't mean anything
unless you went so high that you eventually saw that manifest into a sphere-shaped Earth. Nobody's going to get that view because space isn't real. There is no outer space. You can't travel out to see Earth as a sphere. It's not a sphere. But the claim of it being bent, the horizon that is, when reified into a physical geometric limitation called Earth curve, getting bendy left to right, in your view, as you go high, would happen if we were on a sphere. It doesn't happen because we're not, and it isn't qualified that way, probably because it doesn't happen. In terms of what they say Earth curve is. They say it's a geometric limitation to your view from background to foreground, with the limitation being a geometric physical Earth curve obstruction to the boat or the building in the background. That's Earth curve. We debunked it. Black swan. If the Earth was a sphere with a radius of 3959 miles, as asserted in the Earth curve geometry, with a limitation to your view at that point, called the horizon, then every distance to that horizon could be no more than 1.2 times the square root of the observer's height in feet, exactly as I asserted earlier, as their claim suggests. When we show it beyond the limitations of a geometric sphere edge limitation at 1.2 times the square root of the observer's height in feet, it's not Earth curve anymore. Black swan. You only need to show one.
Well, I can go one step further. You cut the head off the argument. I'm going to douse it in gasoline and burn it to nothing. Because even if you were able to show the horizon bending, even if you could show that as you rise in altitude, the horizon seems to conform to the distance it should be at for the height above the ground you are, you still need a flat baseline to measure elevation angles. And the differential you're measuring is between two flat planes.
Flat Earth required, baby. You're going to need a flat Earth to assert you're on a sphere. That's how tragic their claim is. That's why we're not being censored into oblivion, because part of your globe claim requires Earth to be flat. I mean, you've just got to get past that if you want to believe you're on a sphere. Don't get too hung up on it if you want to believe you're on a sphere. But it means that we can't be gotten rid of. What are you going to do? Get rid of an essential part of navigation? No, I don't think so. Flat Earth required. It's on screen right now. That angle to the sun from that boat requires a flat Earth. End of story. It
That
can't
right
be done
there
any
is a
other
good
way.
representation of dip correction between horizontal and sea level.
Yeah, eye line with a black bold line. Sea level, marked as level, depicted as level, can only be used level because you're getting an angle. No bends will ever give you that. It is the differential between these 2 points when you talk about 1.2 times the square root of the observer's height in feet. That dip has been called Earth curve when you plot it out on a graph raising in altitude. All you're doing is changing your dip to the horizon, not Earth curve, not falling away from you as you raise in height. Au contraire. But that's how the maths has been done. Yeah, spot on, John. Refracted curvature by name, mathematically debunking it by nature.
Why would there be a likeness between the word horizon and the word horizontal? And horizontal is obviously it's a straight line. that has no changes in its pitch. So, why would there be a likeness between those two things if the horizon was a curved line?
The one's derived from the other.
Interestingly enough, if you ask a anti-flat earther, they'll tell you that a horizontal line cannot encompass a space, therefore the horizon is not horizontal.
The horizon is not physical. The horizon isn't a physical. It's an optical location. What they're saying by that statement is they're pre-assuming it's a physical location.
So this is the last acid test for this computer, right, today. So what I've done is, because it's an efficiency tune, I've turned the voltage down on the RAM. Yeah, because it's a really well binned piece of RAM, the chips are really high quality. What that means in literal terms is you can get them to work at the specified speed and whatever at a lower voltage. Therefore, they'll tolerate higher voltage, and as you push the voltage higher, you can get higher speeds. But that works the other way around, which is to say that you can achieve a desired lower speed at a lower voltage. Does that make sense? So what I've done is I've taken my very nice RAM that can achieve extremely high speeds with very good timing and taken it down in speed to just above what Intel specifies the maximum for their stock specification, but lowered the voltage. So it's pulling less and generating less heat. That's the idea, at least. So now that it's undervolted, which it hasn't been until now, I've been trying to get more out of it, which I failed to because it was just too hot, being 4 sticks of it. Now it's undervolted, so hopefully it won't overheat for sure because it's got less voltage, but hopefully it's a good enough bin that it won't die on its arse because it hasn't got enough voltage to sustain its, frequency.
Hey Nathan, your new PC and all that. Has anything changed on the audio regarding your new setup, or is that still the same?
Yes, plenty of things have changed. Everything's changed because the entire system's changed. It used to run on 2 different audio cards, one internal that was not the motherboard but a separate sound card, and then one external, and those 2 would interact to get the show running. Now it's just one for the mic, and everything else is run by the computer's onboard audio, which is great because it means that it tends to not. I'm lying. It does exactly the same as the old one. It's just as twitchy. Anyway, it's different though, yeah. Why'd you ask?
Well, most of the time I listen on the Gilded on my phone because I'm out and about working. But since you've had the new setup, I have listened back.
You sound terrible, by the way. You're breaking up really badly. Right, the conclusion. We got to. I've listened back, so we know you've listened. Okay. One day you're breaking up, mate. You can't hear me telling him he's breaking up because his connection's not good enough to hear me telling him, is it?
On you.
You're breaking up.
He's dropped out for the moment, Nathan. Oh, he's back.
Well, that was a nice story.
Yeah, sorry, I'm in a bad area.
Is the audio better or worse?
But what I was saying is I've listened back on the YouTube rather than my phone. It sounds so much better.
Yes, it does. It does. I was trying to track down various conflicts that I could never, ever get to the bottom of and probably never would have without replacing the PC entirely, which I have done. And now there don't seem to be as many audio conflicts. But jolly good. That's very good. I'm pleased to hear it. Oh, I'm glad the audio is better because this silence is really, really clear. It's what we all need.
Yeah, he's gonna have
Well,
to
you
hold the
start.
show. I'm in a bad reception area. Go ahead, Brian.
Don't blame me for talking about RAM. Everybody loves talking about RAM, Brian.
Yeah, well, you come in and start telling everyone about RAM and undervoting, and then you wonder why conversation ends.
No, I thought that would be the thing that would generate more conversation. Everybody loves XMP profiles and undervolting RAM.
Can I talk about sheep? Can I
About
talk
what?
about sheep if you're going to talk about RAM?
About
I'm going
sheep?
to go get my teeth pulled.
Go on, John. Sorry.
I said I was going to go get my teeth pulled. See you guys.
No, it's
See, John, best of luck with that.
That's not fair.
That sounds painful.
You're making out like it's not fun listening to me talking about this computer. It's like I said at the beginning. This will hopefully be the last day that I have to talk about it. This is the last. If it passes today, in other words, if I don't have to do anything by the end of today's show, I've already had to unplug the camera and plug it back in again. But other than that,
Who doesn't like you talking about the computers? I love it.
everybody
Carry
loves it.
on.
They're just being silly.
Maybe, Nathan, you should do a show that has nothing to do with flat Earth or globe Earth or science, purely based on how to successfully set up. It's basically a content creator show, all
No.
based on. You don't have to listen to it. I don't have to listen to it. But
No, but
it's all
see that
based
when
on.
Michael Jackson went solo, he didn't need the Jackson 5 anymore. If Nathan gets more successful, then he won't need us anymore.
Yeah, okay, but this is going to be
hold
for
on.
content creators.
I don't
This
know
is
why
so-
Neil's got so big-headed. I don't need you anyway, Neil.
Yeah, Neil. Now you've just hurt your own feelings. Yeah, well, Nathan, when you speak about with other content creators, when you go through, you're basically talking about the best cameras, the best microphones, best setup computer-wise for different scenarios for content creation, that kind of thing. Because you seem to have an interest in it. You have an interest in YouTube and the stats, an interest in the whole thing works. I don't know. You could totally do a show on that.
I could, but there's people who do a much better job. So there's Podcastage, who does all the stuff about microphones. There's Evox Now, or whatever he's called, that does all of the stuff about OBS and has done for years. He also assists all of the tech geeks about how to get the best out of their OBS streaming performance. And I've watched him for that very reason. So there's other people trying to break into that evergreen topic, therefore very much saturated. So becoming a better YouTube content creator and putting better cameras in and all that stuff is definitely something that gets covered on YouTube plenty. But it's just that it was one of the things I considered, actually, computing specifically. I was like, well, I'm out of touch with it, but it doesn't take long to learn. But then I looked at what was already available to people, and I was like, I don't have enough personality to make computers interesting. Like, there's a guy called David does tech stuff, right? If you're not necessarily into computers, but you just want a computer and you might be buying one, it's a good idea to watch somebody who's like not talking about overclocking, just talking about just buying and using a computer, but funny. So he does funny things with it. Now, he's got a really good presentation style and a good sense of humor, and he's doing silly things with graphics cards, like making them run on a 1980s monitor, just stupid stuff like that. Well, that kind of stuff takes a certain amount of skill to make a GPU interesting and funny. I don't have that skill. What I do have is a skill to make people interested in the nature of their reality, hopefully.
Well, it seems that you've named out people who deal with specifics. I was talking about an all-encompassing show where you deal with where you can refer back to these people. Because we know from this man's research here and what this man says, or this lady over here says this about this thing, that kind of a thing. You know, where it's an all-encompassing, rather than just focusing on one part, you're focusing on the whole YouTube content creator experience. Just a suggestion.
Yeah, it's certainly something, but I don't know, stick to what you're good at, and I think I'm good at doing flat Earth. So I'll probably stick to that.
Well, you're the best at that. There's no doubt about that.
When he does it
Okay.
and there's no more flat earth debate, we'll know who to blame, Brian.
You, Neil, will have to blame you. Hey, Tim.
I stay to my Michael Jackson analogy. The poor other brothers.
Hey guys, how you doing? You
Hello?
hear me?
Hey,
Yes.
hey, mate.
Yeah, I'm just driving back, so a little noisy in the van.
Before I came on the show, I was listening to some of QE's live stream from last night. He has got a talent for live streaming. I mean, he can make anything interesting. He can keep you entertained. He's got a talent for it. I mean, especially within the subject matter. And I think I only got to listen to the first maybe half an hour of his show. I'm going to listen to it. It's a 5-hour show. I'm going to listen to the rest of it later. But he's brilliant. Straight away, he had me laughing. Straight away, he had me interested. You know, so he's got an absolute talent for that.
Yeah, Kiwi's good. I got straight into his stream again yesterday and watched a good hour of it. Right, it's all gone very quiet.
I was waiting for Neil to say something.
I don't like the
Almost was
idea
gonna
one
say-
bit. Stick to flat earth debate.
I was almost going to say, yes, Nathan, tell us more.
About Ram?
No, about the QV show.
It was awesome.
Okay.
It's 5 hours. I only got to listen to maybe 45 minutes this morning. And now flat earth debate starts. So that gets put in the back burner till this show's over.
Well, basically, Anthony is speaking to Rob. Is it Rob Parks? He's a PhD astrophysicist, I think. I could have that wrong. And there's another guy who comes in, who I think his name is Norm, who is a civil engineer. That so far, it's only after just starting. Besides all of the run up to it, where QE is waiting for people to join in and waiting for the numbers to rise and all that, and keeping people entertained and making sure everything's working right. So making sure everything is working right. When you get started on it, it's Anthony speaking with this guy Rob Parks, who had left some comment on one of Reggie's videos. Now I think I'm not sure if this is recent or if it was back a year or whatever. But basically, this guy Rob Parks doesn't know what the scientific method is. Basically, he doesn't understand that gravity is not a force anymore since 1915. Like, I've already gotten that much so far. That this guy Rob Parks is inept, basically, when it comes to heliocentrism. Totally inept. You know, he actually asked Anthony at one point, like, for no reason at all. He asked Anthony, right, because Anthony brought up retrograde motion, right, as Newton's equations weren't describing that correctly, and that was part of the reason why Einstein was needed. Let's just say, right, and he asked Anthony what's retrograde
that was it.
motion.
Retrograde. I was trying to, before you got here, I'm sure I was trying to describe exactly that. Was the bit I left a comment on. So he asked Anthony to define what retrograde is, and before he's got to the end, he's interrupted him and started telling him how the heliocentric model explains it.
But Anthony defined it perfectly.
He also told Anthony no. He said, like, he basically said Anthony was incorrect. Anthony was totally correct. This is a baller thing they do. They just start saying no and start trying to lecture you as if you're wrong, but yet they never produce the evidence of where you're wrong.
Then it was an
So
apparent
then-
backward motion, which in the most simplistic way is correct.
Right, and QE said that's exactly what retrograde is.
I would disagree with QE. It's not exactly what retrograde is. It needs a lot more explanation. There is no moving backwards of the stars ever. The star appears in the sky and moves around exactly as it would every single night from here to eternity. That's what it'll do. But the following night, where it appears in relation to the other stars, moves back. In relation to the other stars as it continues to move in the same direction it's always moved in. That's retrograde motion. So you can
I'm
track
talking
it
about what
Yeah.
he said to Anthony.
over a period of nights in respect to the other star's position in the sky further back along the cyclical motion. That's a very accurate description of retrograde motion. But when they simplify it in the way they do and just say it's it moving backwards, no, it is not. But that's what they want you to believe because that's how it looks if you're describing the actual orbital motion of the heliocentric model. That's how it would be apparent to them because it's a backward motion versus the other orbital motions, as opposed to what we actually get to see, which is the position moving back in the cycle on a night-by-night basis. That's retrograde
on.
motion.
He asked Anthony what retrograde means, correct? The
He gave
meaning
a very,
of it.
Anthony gave a very simplistic yet accurate description that was oversimplified. That would be my objection. But when he just said no, as in you're just wrong. No, he wasn't just wrong. You could have argued that he could have given a more expansive explanation, but he certainly wasn't wrong. As the guy challenged him, he was like, "You're just wrong." The heliocentric model explains it. So whoa! You asked him to define it, and he did it really concisely. Now you're into explaining. He just had an agenda. He wanted to work his way into explaining how retrograde motion is explained by the heliocentric model, and he made it in such a fashion, in such a ham-handed way that it was like, ugh, that was so. I would be, if it was me doing that, I'd have to make a self-note of how ham-handed I've been. For him, it was
What
just like,
does
that's
it
just
ma-
perfectly reasonable.
What does it matter if they don't have R?
Doesn't.
Yeah, so
Well,
it's over.
You know, when you're looking at cars on an interstate, right? And one of them, and they're all moving at the same speed. If one of them slows down and then speeds back up, is it going backwards at any point in time?
No.
No.
Well, that would answer the backwards claim of retrograde motion, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe. Hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon, and crypto link in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. Now we are joined by 10th Man, Brian's Logic, Refracted Curvature, Neil, and a whole bunch of people in Gilded, so welcome one and all.
Hello.
Good morning. Good morning. Glad to be here.
Me Too, pending any PC disasters. I said this a couple of days ago, but then I ended up with the PC disaster and wasn't sat comfortably not concentrating on PC tuning. I hope this will be the first day of many days for years to come where I sit here stress-free, knowing that the PC is just going to work throughout the entire show without overheating, without causing any problems, without distracting my attention. So hopefully the quality of the show will go up. That and having a holiday means that the show figures have dipped. That and we're being slandered by Within Flat Earth. But those three things have meant a significant dip in the numbers. But hopefully my enthusiasm level going up with a new computer behind me and a little bit of a break behind me with a holiday a couple of weeks ago in this particular period should all serve to up the quality of the show. Also, we're expanding out the horizons of Flat Earth onto other platforms. Hopefully that'll bring more people to YouTube to subscribe to Nathan Oakley 1980. And that will continue with the help of other fantastic members of our actual community that are held in high regard, and they've been discussed over the last couple of days, because that's where the support for this show comes from. Not just the people who buy computers and set up entire websites so that I can have a stream when I'm under a load of copyright strikes. The community is the people who donate, smash the super chat, like, comment, share, subscribe, and get a mention in every single introduction to every single show, because you are the heart and soul of the show. And indeed the participation, which is obviously fulfilled now by Gilded, and will take a little bit of time to build up some momentum with just general passers-by, but it is still serving quite adequately, I might add, as the public gateway. So if, as I'm just repeating myself and have done for the last couple of shows, you did want to join and challenge anything we say in regards to the globe Earth requiring a flat Earth to be asserted, you can just come and say, no, we know we're on a sphere. Challenge us and offer your evidence in regards to your claim. That's never changed and never will. So.
Well, I have the perfect globe proof.
Oh, yeah. Let's hear it.
How could Michael Jackson have done the moonwalk if you couldn't walk on the moon?
The moonwalk is a James Brown ripoff. In other words, the move isn't James Brown's, but James Brown did it and Michael Jackson saw it and went, I like that. The move's called the backslide, performed by James Brown and stolen by Michael Jackson and renamed the moonwalk. Did you know that?
You didn't
That's the
answer
end of
my
that proof.
question.
Say again?
There goes your proof down the toilet. So he said you didn't
That's
answer the question.
It's one of those few
I was
times
gonna
that
say
going to
quickly-
college, learning magic and dance and other stuff like that. It's becoming useful, so there we go. Not often I can say that. Any evidence of a physical geometric sphere-edge horizon, formerly known as of 1st of January 2020 as the curve of the Earth. Also, shout out to Himsake. He says, keep up the good fight. Yeah, I don't know if there is a fight, is there? Is there a fight? We won.
Fight, only
We won
victory.
ages ago. There is no fight. And, if there was, you show me where it's happening. People say, oh, the show's very quiet in regards to baller participation. That's because we won.
Nathan, as of 1st Jan 2020, the rest of the world don't know about it. So in their mind, there still is a fight.
Yeah, but they'd be bringing it to us, wouldn't they? They're in the majority still. It's the dying army behind the dead king. Your model is the king. We killed it. 1st Jan 2020. Now, you're all like, well, but we've still got the numbers. Yeah? Okay. But you don't have a model. Your model required a flat Earth. It's literally the end of the road for the claim of a globe. Further to that, why aren't we being censored? Why are we still here? Because Earth being flat is a prerequisite of a globe claim. You can't censor out the grandfather of your claim, especially when it's an antecedent-consequent relationship. You can't have a globe Earth without a flat Earth to measure first. That is a fact. So what are you going to do? Censor out all of celestial navigation? I don't think so. What are you going to do? Censor the people who talk about Al-Biruni measuring a flat Earth? No.
So once they realize that their king is dead, then they'll realize that the war is over, correct?
We talk about Al-Biruni, something typically directly associated with globe claims, and we use Al-Biruni and his standard story. It's on screen now. His measurement, right? This depiction shows Al-Biruni's dip that we talked about in the pre-show, the differential between two flat planes that's asserted when raising in altitude to be a curved surface beneath your feet. Well, in order to do this, he had to get H. See how it says H here? It's the point between A and B. That'd be the height of this mountain. Now, he needs that from surface level to do his dip angle measurement for the triangle to get the radius. Where did he get the height? Because he needs that first. Well, he measured a flat earth to get it. He had to. He's got no choice. He's using angles. So to get H, before any of this presuppositional globe nonsense, he measured a flat earth. You're going to censor me telling you how your stories require a flat earth? No, I can reference dozens, if not hundreds, of references to Al-Biruni's requirement of a flat earth. That's how he measured it. It's the only way he can do it. So there's no censoring me telling you it must be flat for your globe claim. I'm just an advanced heliocentric understander. I understand how your model of a globe that you believe in required a flat earth to measure first. That won't be censored, ever.
Which is interesting that you bring that up about censorship. The tramp stamp that is on every flat earth video, I think we should be putting out community guideline strikes against videos that talk about Al-Biruni's measurements or any of the measurements that doesn't have that stamp at the bottom.
Yeah, celestial navigation, per se, needs that stamp if we need it. We're talking about celestial navigation and claims of Al-Biruni needing a flat earth, and you're told that flat earth's an archaic model. That's incorrect. No, it's a prerequisite for Al-Biruni's R measurement. That's not a model he's appealing to. It's a flat plane he's measuring. No model at all. Now, the tramp stamp might serve well for people who are talking about ice walls and domes. It doesn't serve well for me talking about measuring Earth flat, and the fact that it needs to be done that way to claim you're on a ball.
Well, I'm okay with the tramp stamp, but I think anybody that talks about celestial navigation or is talking about Al-Biruni or Eratosthenes or anyone else that claimed to measure an angle to the stars or anything ever needs that same tramp stamp now.
Air travel also.
Yeah. The
Right.
girl and guy who are measuring the shard, talking about Al-Biruni, in various points in their video, they disclose that they're measuring the Earth as flat. Well, why haven't they got a tramp stamp? Oh, because when it's a prerequisite, when you're like, we'll need the flat Earth to measure this first. Oh, well, then that's not declaring the Earth's flat, because we're actually saying that in spite of us presupposing it's a sphere and measuring it flat, I'm still going to say it's a sphere at the end, therefore no tramp stamp required. Why? Because they're delusional, they don't need a tramp stamp. No, they're telling you it measured flat. That was the starting point, and always will be, and the basis of celestial navigation, and always will be. So John's saying, why haven't the celestial navigation videos all got tramp stamps about Earth not being flat? Well, it is in their depictions, and it is in their measurements, and it is when you navigate Earth. Because Earth is flat. Now, this is a fact that will go forward, because it can't be censored. That's my point. That's my point of this ramble. You can't censor us. And all the delusional muppets that are anti-flat earthers in their pain, you're trapped here with us, just a danger to the belief of the general normie, with your anti-flat earth and anti-globe rhetoric that you spew. You somehow think that you're praiseworthy because you're promoted by YouTube. Well, that didn't seem like a reasonable distinction at first, but now it does. We're not censored. We're just not promoted. Now, the anti-flat earthers within our little circle are promoted. Shout out to Godzilla, who's gifted 5 Nathan Oakley 1980 channel memberships. Now I know how this is done. Thank you very much, first of all, Godzilla, for doing so. You just have to go and claim them. If you're in the chat right now on YouTube and you want to actually see your name with a membership strap and access to all of the live streams like the 3-hour one we did yesterday, mainly because I was checking the computer wouldn't set on fire, But there was a lot of good conversation in that, and you can have access to it for free on, well, not for free, on Godzilla. So thank you very much to Godzilla. I'm sure 5 people will claim their free memberships in the next 10 minutes. Excellent stuff. Anyway, we can't be censored. That's the point of this. How can you censor an antecedent for your globe claim? You can't. They're caught between a rock and a hard place. So no, we won't censor, but we'll heavily promote the people who say the ones pointing out it is flat at the end of their conclusion with the exact same information in the case of Al-Biruni. They get promoted because they say it's a globe at the end of their nonsensical non sequitur.
Same for Eratosthenes.
What about him?
Well, I mean, they have to. What I mean is that it's the same thing when speaking about Eratosthenes, because they have to claim that he pre-assumed that the Earth was a sphere, and that the Sun was very big and at a distance. So what we receive, so we would receive, but in such a way so we would receive parallel light rays from the Sun.
Hold on, was he not measuring an angle?
Yeah, he was measuring an angle. But
John, I'm surprised John's not interrupting you already.
Oh, no, leave me finish. Don't call in John. Leave me finish. He measured an angle. He measured a flat plane. He measured 500 miles, statute miles of an adjacent. But the claim is that he pre-assumed it was a sphere that we were living on. So the only way to get the shadows that we see in real life to work on a spherical surface would be for the Sun to have a much huger diameter than the globe Earth, and to be at just the correct distance so we would get parallel light rays from it. But
no. Go ahead, John.
Still matches the angle.
Hold on, Brian. I'm glad he's stepped in at this stage. Go ahead, John.
No, he's wrong. If he steps in on me now, he's wrong.
We'll see.
No,
we'll see. Go
to
ahead, John.
measure parallel rays, to measure parallel rays, you need a flat plane.
Yes, but you didn't leave me finish.
Don't bury the headline.
So Nate, you didn't leave me finish. So what can I do? So the finish of what I was trying to say is, for the shadows we see in reality to work over a spherical surface with a radius of 3959 miles, then the Sun would have to be of a particular size and at a particular distance. The diameter size, is to get the parallel light rays. The distance will be to match what they claim to be an angular size to the Sun. So for those shadows to work within that claim, they needed those parameters. Otherwise, he measured a flat plane with a close and local Sun.
Yeah, he needs a flat plane. Go on, John.
Yeah, that's them just ignoring that they just used the flat plane to measure angles and asserting nonsense. It doesn't matter whether you believe. It doesn't matter whether you believe the rays are parallel or divergent or convergent. You will need a flat plane to measure the angle.
Yes, Paul.
Yes, John, that's absolutely right. Sunlight does not come in parallel in the first place.
But regardless, we're burying the headline. I'm going to reiterate it. John's done it. What we're talking about is Eratosthenes measuring a flat Earth. He's taking an angle. Let's ask the housekeeping question. Any evidence that you can acquire an elevation angle measurement from a curved baseline?
No, that means you have to do it from the top of their sphere Earth, and it cannot be done.
Can't get an angle from
Earth
the
is
top
not
of
a
the sphere.
sphere.
There is no angle from tops of spheres. You need a flat
Exactly.
baseline.
That's my point.
It's the basis of all navigation.
They even concede it's not coming from the top of the sphere. It's coming from the equatorial plane. So it is a flat disk.
Yeah,
Explain,
equatorial
please.
plane being a circle derived from Polaris's positional view. So you've got the equatorial plane just being a circle of equal altitude for Polaris. That's all it is. Flat plane with the dome of the sky over you mapped is the celestial sphere model. It's a flat Earth model, and all of the other globe models are derived from it.
Oh dear.
Well,
Oh dear.
yeah.
Oh dear.
But that's where they get confused. They think the celestial sphere is a globe model. It is not. When they say light is coming in parallel, they're thinking of the celestial sphere model, which you can assert that and say those stars are at infinite distance, but it's still a flat plane model.
Yeah, but the parallel light rays claim is to explain the shadows. See, people are hoodwinked. People look past the fact that Eratosthenes was measuring using an elevation angle. They look past that fact because they start going onto shadows. They were brought straight onto shadows.
It's a red herring. Exactly, Brian.
Yeah.
Yeah, you are on the right track. I'm sorry I shut you down. Your point is perfect.
Can you explain that, Brian?
Yeah, because what they did is they focused people's attention onto the shadows. They made people, they said that if the Earth was flat, then the sun would have to be close and local for the shadows to work. But because we know it's a sphere and we know the sun is at such a size and such a distance, we know that the light is coming in parallel, which matches the shadows we do see in reality but it matches them, makes them work over a curved surface of a sphere with a radius of 3959 miles. So just pre-assumed everything and focused on the shadows and got all the focus away from how Eratosthenes measured this distance, which was over a horizontal plane.
With an angle. Exactly. So,
wow.
So your focus becomes, what's the light doing? How's the light coming in? How's it meeting us? No. If you're going to be measuring an angle, what's your baseline? Oh, it's the ground, the Earth. That's a flat baseline for the angle. Let's argue about whether or not the light comes in parallel or not.
How come they're not seeing this? Oh my God.
We didn't see this. What are you talking about? We're on the cutting edge here. I love it when Neil exclaims
No, I mean people now.
disbelief that people don't realise it. We're only just realising this, Neil. We're on the cutting edge.
No, I'm saying not people then. I'm saying now. This argument has been out. We've been explaining it, and they're not getting it.
Who's not getting it?
Who's not getting it? Wait a minute, who's not getting it, Neil?
The 72 people in this audience are getting it. Please share the show.
Share the show, correct. I guess anti-flat earthers, and they don't want to get it. I understand what you're saying, Tim.
What's not to get?
When you say they're not getting it, it's not that they're not getting it. They don't want to admit to it. They're getting it.
Okay, I'll give you for instance. My brother's not a stupid kid. I explained it to him, and how is he not understanding it? Why is he taking me right to physicists and scientists, and he knows this one and knows that one? I don't get it.
Psychology question. I don't know the psychology of your brothers.
That's a distraction. It's a distraction for themselves, so they don't hurt. Right?
So he don't want to get it.
There's more arguments out there. This argument I'm losing, but I'm quickly going to try to move on to something else so they don't have to feel how I actually lost.
Exactly. He doesn't want to address the argument because he might find the argument you're putting forth is correct. So much better to address something else, red herring away from having to deal with the argument. And you're saying, well, he's not stupid. He must get this. No. In his mind, he's got two choices. Red herring away from the discussion or cover the argument. Now you're saying if he chose the latter, he's not stupid, he'd get it. Yeah. Well, he's also not stupid enough to realise that he might get it, and that's bad because he loses his paradigm if he does, doesn't he? He doesn't want to, I would imagine.
Yeah, but then when I told him people were fighting against it back in the day, like Calvin and Martin Luther, he denies it. He said, no, they weren't. They said it was a sphere. Where did they ever say that it was a sphere?
Sorry, don't do that. Don't compare Martin Luther to the nature of our flat reality and how it's measured and navigated. I mean, come on.
Because he went biblical on me.
This is going to go south quickly, isn't it? Quick, do something, Arwin.
Well, I was going to say, you can concede every argument they want. You can say, okay, I'll give you that. And they'll still need a flat plane.
That's what you did with McJune and Rudev, which was excellent. You remember at the beginning.
What rebuttal come out? I was just going to ask you, Tenth, what rebuttal have they given to anything that I said?
Nothing. They were mad that you didn't go through the math and the calculations when you said, no, I'll give it to you, but you need a elevation angle on a flat plane gives you that and not a curved surface. And they just were fighting it. But it goes back to the beginning when and I still hold these 2 points. The sextant is an angle measuring device. And an angle is two straight lines meeting at a vertex. It cannot work on a curved baseline. It's so simple that you just keep saying that. Like I remember doing this with somebody where they wanted to dance around it. And I say, here, let me repeat myself. A sextant is an angle measuring device, and an angle is two straight lines that meet at a vertex. I did it like 3-4 times. And it was so frustrating because I say, you're not moving off this because this is the death of the globe right here.
Yeah, that's what I finally did with my brother too. Then I explained to him about the sextant, how they've been navigating celestially for a long time, and it's two straight lines, and it can't be done on your curved surface.
Well, what we have going on at this present time, well, on the screen there is what I was talking about earlier with the shadows, and the one on the left is reality. That's what happened in reality. But what we have going on here with our opposition at present, as I'm running into it, is as they have to hijack everything. The globe model is just a hijacking of as many things as they can hijack. That's really all it is. They hijack as many real-world effects or anything that even has any relevance to try and hijack. That's what they've always done. So I have at present, right, I'm not going to name a name, but a well-known baller, right, who is trying to, right, this is pathetic, trying to hijack elevation angles and depression angles for a globe, and trying to come at me with all angles on a flat plane would be an angular size type measurement, so you would know the height of the stars. So this is where they're at. This is how pathetic they are at. This is where they're at. This is a pathetic place they're at. Pathetic is the only word you could call it, let's just say.
Let's have a look
So
at
they're
this
trying
diagram.
to hijack an elevation angle for a globe. How do you do that?
Well, let's have a little look on this diagram. Okay. So what we've got here is how it's measured, right? You've got Aristophanes looking here at what he does. He takes an angle from a flat plane to the sun. Okay? We're all clear? Now we have Fig 2b. Can you see my mouse? Is everyone watching the live stream? You probably can't see it in G+. What I'm pointing at is A1 on the sphere. It's got an angle drawn to the first top line from the sun in orthographic view on the right. Can you see where I am? A1. You see the angle at A1?
Yes.
What's this at the bottom? Is this a 90 degree?
Well, it couldn't be a 90 degree on the sphere.
That's a problem. What about this one? A2. Got a line coming in, claimed to be parallel from the sun. Completely contradictory to how we see it. But we're not going to argue about that. That's what they want you to argue about. They've laid it out in this false dichotomy, ignoring how this measurement's taken. So let's come down from A2. Is this 90 degrees?
No, it can't be. The surface is curved. Can't be 90 degrees. That's why they have to claim the use of things like tangent planes.
Where's the tangent plane in this diagram?
Well, it's not in the diagram because that would completely debunk the whole claim.
Well, it would show what a
no.
mess doing it on a sphere is, because you haven't got any flat lines to measure angles with. You've just got a curved claim to be surface that isn't being measured. It's being measured like this. That's how it's actually measured. Pretty basic. Just talking about triangles.
Yeah, all they're doing is on the left side, they're showing how they actually measured the angles, and then they're taking the opposite angle of what was measured and applying it in figure 2b, which goes against how they measured the angle on the left.
Nathan, they're taking the measurement from the center of the equatorial plane. So there's where your baseline is. And the reason you don't have a tangent plane there is because this is where the Haversine formula comes in to say that's where you are on that curved surface.
But the Haversine formula is an application to the flat plane in the celestial sphere model in that instance. So when you're talking about the equatorial plane, it's back to what we described earlier. It's an area of equal elevation for Polaris, right? Well, that's also called the equator. But it's just a flat plane with the dome of the sky you see if you were at Polaris, mapped below you on a flat plane so you can match it up with the angles. It's the heart and soul of your globe claim, by the way. We mentioned it at the beginning of the show. All claims, doesn't matter what you claim from a globe, all of them will require a flat Earth to be asserted first. I'm going to say that's a bold statement right now. Let's see if we can poke some bears in the audience. Every globe Earth claim requires a flat Earth in the first instance. Full stop. Period.
Nathan, I want you to think of that circle, not as a sphere, but a great circle that they always like to talk about. And it always, there's only one on the longitude, that's the equator. The rest are, I'm sorry, latitude would be the equator. And all the longitude are great circles. So that's a great circle picture that you're looking at. And from the center is where you get the angle where the vertex is. And we know that is the plane that they're doing it from. But then, as John has said, they have to use a transformative formula to on the surface. So they out the celestial sphere, and then from the celestial sphere, they back to that great circle surface, never sign, and say this is where you are.
Yeah, you're going to need a flat plane for that first, though. John,
You
do you
could
want to
probably,
ask your question, your housekeeping question?
yeah. If the Earth is a sphere and is navigated as a sphere, why would you need to apply a transformative equation known as Haber-Sign?
To turn it into a
You
sphere
wouldn't.
when you're measuring it flat. Why would you need to turn an already spherical surface into a spherical surface with the Haber-Sign formula?
You shouldn't have to.
Well, you see, this is a massive contradiction on their claims, because they like to claim, this is one of the reasons that you've heard me ask, where is your globe map, right, in recent weeks. They like to claim that all maps are globe maps, right? Yet, when they put the already established distance measurements and that are established via the zenith distance on across a horizontal plane by the sextant, and then that is obviously the radius of a circle of equal latitude. So when all these things are established, all these horizontal measurements are established, they put them onto the universal transverse Mercator map, which distorts all the original measurements. So then they take those distorted measurements from what they're claiming to be a globe map and put them, and then they correct them onto a globe. Why would they need to do any of that if it was already a globe? Why would they need to put these already established horizontal plane measurements onto a map that distorts them, and then undistort the now distorted measurements, and undistort them back on to put them onto undistort them and place them on the surface, on a curved surface of a globe? Why would you need to do any of that if the initial measurements were already over a curved surface?
They aren't. They're made flat. They must, because they have to transform it into a curved surface because it was measured flat.
Exactly.
You know,
well, I have something extra I can add. Sorry.
I was just going to say that the claim that all maps are globe maps isn't true. All maps are probably celestial sphere maps. I would agree to that.
Therefore, all maps are flat Earth maps. Not only are they flat in use, they're flat in origin. What's that? You've got a globe step in between that you undo after doing it. It doesn't make any difference. It's surplus to requirements. You need the celestial sphere to make that map. Therefore, all globe models and claims and projections were derived from a flat Earth model.
Well, let me just throw something at you. Something I threw out to Adam and some of the rest of them there recently, after the show was over. The latitude and longitude grid is established from elevation line, from the use of, let's say, the likes of a marine sextant and Polaris. That's where it's established from. We get our latitudes from Polaris, and we get our distances between the distance between the GP point of Polaris, which we call the North Pole, the North Geographic Center or whatever, and the equator. All that's all based on Polaris. So everything within the North everything north of the equator, right, concerning as far as the latitude and longitude grid goes, that is all based off of actual elevation angles to actual real world elevation angle measurements to Polaris, right? It's all based off of Polaris. Now, when you get to the equator, Polaris starts to touch the horizon. So when you go past the equator line, you don't have Polaris to work off. So what did they do? They took what was already there, right, north of the equator, and duplicated it south of the equator. Well, what did they do? What they did was they gave everywhere. Let's just use Australia as an example. They gave Sydney and Perth the longitude positions, let's just say, that would suit a sphere. Whereas in reality, their longitude positions are incorrect because the longitude lines come from a center point out the way, right? But they try, because they are begging the question, to try and turn the world into a sphere. They start bringing them back in towards the South Pole position that doesn't exist. We know where the North Pole comes from, right? We have a magnetic draw to there, and we also have the GP point of Polaris. We know where that comes from, but they made up the South Pole point to bring back in all the longitude lines. So they're at their widest on the globe at the equator. Whereas in reality, the latitude and longitude grid is actually what we see on the Gleason's map. But all the longitude positions and sizes of the continents and countries south of the equator are skewed on that map. Why are they skewed? Because they're given the longitude and latitude positions that would suit a globe. If you change those longitude and latitude positions to what they should be, putting those continents and countries at the correct sizes south of the equator, then you would have a real world map. And that's the very thing we do not have, and they have never done. Why have they never done it? Because they have to keep on making skewed maps that don't work. You have to switch from this map to that map to the other map, and they're all for different reasons, and all because why? Because they don't want to admit that the Earth is not a globe. And that's what it's about. They manipulated the latitude and longitude grid, and they made it into whatever they wanted to past the equator where nobody can see Polaris. That's what they did. And that's all it was. That's all. Like, basically, Sydney and Perth have the wrong latitude and longitude positions. If you change their latitude and longitude positions to what they should be, the whole thing would probably work perfect.
Well, could it be done? I mean, would you know how to do that? How to basically get cartographic and rearrange these latitude lines so that the map would be to scale? I mean, I'm very curious about this.
Oh yeah, well, if they could do it the wrong way, they can do it the right way. You know, I mean, if you look at how longitude works, it works in a 360 degrees from north, right? North to east to south to west and back to north. That's how it works in a clockwise motion, the azimuth. So all longitude is azimuth. Azimuth's a horizontal. Azimuth is always a horizontal. So that's all it is, right? So you have I have the word wrong. Consequent. I can't say the word. You have circles coming from a central point, which would be the GP point of Polaris, coming out at ordained positions. Let's just say the longitude, latitude, circles of latitude, out from the North Pole, and then you have an azimuth of longitude going around in 360 degrees clockwise. So all you have to do is
circles.
Yeah, I have the word in my head, but I have two words and
right?
Concentric.
Concentric, that's it.
Okay.
Yeah, concentric. Thank you, Adam. That was the word I was looking for, concentric. I was mixing up two words in my head. So that, if you think of it that way, that's all they'd have to do. They'd only have to change the longitude positions, because that's what they did. That's what they did in the first place. They gave, let's say, Sydney and Perth as the best examples. They gave Sydney and Perth the latitude and longitude positions that suits their little sphere, right? And they did this when no one could see past the equator, when nobody can see Polaris. They made it up because that's their story. That's what they did. They made it up. what you could do is you could walk around in longitude, in azimuth, in clockwise, where Sydney might end up holding, I think it's 115 degrees east, right? But Perth would not be 151 degrees east then. Perth would have to be less than that. You know what I mean? So you could do it where everything that's first on clockwise, where it would match up. So maybe Sydney might be able to be 115 degrees east, but Perth wouldn't be able to be 151 degrees east, because that makes Australia too wide.
Could it be possible, like as an improvisation, because it's not proper cartography, to basically take the Earth maps and put them like on a dynamic polygon that you could basically, well, alter the lines, their position in relation to the rest of the polygon, right? So you could like roughly see what it would be like. Wouldn't that be possible?
You'd have to show me what you're talking about. When you say polygons.
Yeah, it's just a three-dimensional mapping system, right? It's so you could make the Earth surface like a texture on a whole bunch of little triangles that, yeah, can then be like a mesh in a 3D program, basically stretched and altered. And that way you could like roughly figure out what it should be like.
Oh, I see what you mean now.
Actually
yeah,
cartographic.
I see what you mean now. Yeah, I see what you mean now. You're taking all the countries and continents and laying them out. You're starting off with basically a map made up of triangles, and you're laying
like
it
a
out.
texture, like old-fashioned ray tracing textures.
Yeah, I think I get what you're saying now. Yeah, because all you need to have is you need to keep everything south of the equator its actual size, and just rebrand their latitude and longitude positions. Because that's go on, John.
I was going to ask, isn't that part of the problem? Is the longitude and latitude positions south of the equator? Like, if you just go by, like, say, the model that Mark Sargent presents, and he has like outside the stars in the southern south of the equator, like on a smaller circle around the ones in the north of the equator, it would have a constantly changing longitude and latitude. Is that part of the problem?
Well, working just off of the terrain, I mean, Sydney would and Perth would just, if you just have to find the correct latitude and longitude for Sydney and Perth. Even if you just started off there, the rest would fall into place. Once you sort out Australia, the rest falls into place. Because that's the problem. You see, everything past the equator is made up. Everything past the equator line is made up. They made up the rest of the latitude and longitude grid past the equator line. That's what they did. And it's totally false. It doesn't work, because longitude is an azimuth, which is a horizontal. It's a 360 degrees horizontal. But they've turned it into the curved lines on the outside of a sphere. All they did is they proved the whole of the north of the equator was flat, and then they turned the whole thing into a globe by giving us skewed latitude and longitude positions for Sydney and Perth and places like that. So what we think is the correct latitude and longitude for Sydney and Perth, let's just say, or Johannesburg or whatever, is not. They're not the correct. The latitude might be more correct, but the longitude is not. The longitude positions for at least Perth would have to change, if not Sydney. Everything maybe west of Sydney would have to change, if you know what I mean. Everything west would have to change, something like that. It is doable. But that's the problem. They made it up past the equator line. That's all they did. Because if they didn't make it up, then the Earth is a globe. They're the only two.
They assembled the land masses beyond the equator. They had it mapped up, and then they just placed it somewhere. They roughly put it together. Is that what you're saying?
Well, they started off with the latitude and longitude grid, and they just duplicated south of the equator, what they had north of the equator, and then put the actual land masses from a choreography point of view, to put the actual land masses onto like that are south of the equator, onto their new like globes, onto their new globes latitude and longitude grid, and just said that's the latitude and longitude of Sydney, and that's the latitude and longitude of Paris. Right? So that way, when you flatten it out, it stretches them out, which is just saying when you flatten it out, then it stretches out. Let's say Australia and South America, South Africa, blah blah blah. Right? Why does it do that? Because they're given latitude and longitude positions that only fit a globe. Right? So either they made it up past the equator. Everything south of the equator is made up as far as latitude and longitude goes, or it's a sphere. They're the only two options. There is no third option. There's no gray area.
But the spherification of everything south of the equator would have like significantly decreased the amount of oceanic surface that is available on the map then, while not diminishing the amount of landmass, because that is actually very accurately measured out.
Yeah, exactly.
So they diminished the ocean, and they basically just shoved the land masses together in a smaller area of the supposed southern hemisphere.
Exactly, because I mean, nobody travels across the southern ocean. Nobody does that. What are Great Circle routes? What are they? They're all routes that involve north to south, south to north, majority of the time. And if you're going from South Africa to South America, you're going to fly north and then go south. That's what you're going to do. Nobody's traveling across the Great Southern Oceans. Nobody's doing that. The only long latitude line that's claimed to be a Great Circle route is the equator. No plane, no airline company flies following the equator line. No shipping company follows the equator line. They might make a chord line within the equator, right? Line. So they might go from one point on the equator to another point, but they're moving in a straight line. So nobody's doing any of that. So what they basically did is exactly what you said, Arwen. They just shrunk the oceans south of the equator, and nobody notices because everyone travels north-south. Nobody goes across southern ocean.
But as a consequence, there might even be islands that are just not even registered, and they might keep it unregistered, right? What nobody knows about, they can keep for themselves.
It's hard to know. I mean, we only, like, outside of the likes of maybe Tahiti and that's as remote as you're going to get, isn't it? Exists because people live there and you can go there, but outside of that we don't know what's there. We don't know what else is in those oceans.
Right. But I got another question that is about the supposed northern hemisphere. Is that all really correct and in place, or could there have been some slight tempering in those regions as well?
No, that would be correct, because that's all based off of flat plane measurements. All of the northern latitude and longitude positions are all based off of observations to Polaris, flat Earth elevation angles to Polaris. The whole lot that has to be correct. The north has to be correct for them to make up the south.
I get that, but every time I look at a flat disk projection, I mean, everything that's on the inside seems to be like scaled down. It's like it inside shouldn't supposed to fit there in a disk if it was Euclidean. I mean, just as the outside is seemingly all stretched up, I think that maybe something on the inside is also like out of place, but in a different way. I don't know.
I don't know, because
it's harder to figure out.
Yeah, you can confirm a lot of the north of the equator through Polaris, through elevation angles to Polaris. You can confirm like the latitude and longitude positions using Polaris, the sun, things like that. But you can confirm it a lot easier but you don't have a Polaris south of the equator. Like, what do they have? Sigma Octantis.
Yeah, I get that. But there's another element to it, because I don't know if this is absolutely true, But a while back on the Flat Earth debates, we had a discussion with a couple of people, I don't remember who it was, about how when you go straight north, straight to Polaris, as it were, that after certain distances, the angle of Polaris versus supposedly going straight above you starts to, like, over the same distance, like the angle becomes less that it changes. So it's like it moving up above you slows down. So there's that factor that might be also in there. I mean, celestials are weird, man.
Are you talking about when Polaris is getting close to the horizon?
No. Other way around. When you're getting closer to it to the North Pole, where it's supposed to be straight above you, that the further north you go, that it slows down in its climb to go right above you.
Well,
so that there's basically more land than fits within the celestial sphere-based projection in the north.
I don't know.
Fits more land
that would
in
be
there.
more of an optical thing, though. That would be more of an optical thing. I would say. I would say the north is pretty much spot on.
If you're going further north, the Polaris is climbing at a steady rate, and then after some point, you still keep moving the same distances and then measuring, but yet Polaris, the angle with which it climbs to go straight above you, decreases. I mean, that's not an optical thing. That's straight celestial measurement.
Is this something that actually happens, that somebody can show actually happens, or is this just a claim?
It was a claim by somebody that said that they actually went there. And
there you
tried
go.
That.
See, so at present, it's just a claim. Now, I can understand why horizontally, when Polaris or any other star begins to, or anything you're looking at celestially wise, begins to get close to your horizon, especially with the stars, I can understand why they would appear to slow down there, because they're starting to end up in your horizontal view. So it's not just what they're saying.
That's refraction, but that's not what I'm talking about.
In the north, I wouldn't. Yeah, but someone would have to show some evidence of that. Do you know what I mean? So at present, that is just, I wouldn't argue about that or get in or even speculate on it, because it's just at present just some random person's claim, if you understand. So I wouldn't entertain it until they produce some evidence. You know, so I couldn't say it is or is not correct.
It's years ago. It might be like 2017 when that came up. I think that it might have been from somebody that came on Mark Sargent's, one of these guys that served at vessels that were stationed there or something. I don't know. It's a while ago, but it really stuck to my mind. You know?
May I comment on this? Yeah. The G thought is the key. Its zenith is when you're directly under it. It's got a G. If you move 1 degree away, how far did you move away from it in nautical miles?
60.
Well, from what I remember, is that the further you approach these supposed North Pole point derived from Polaris position, that the further north you go, it just slows down in its climb.
No. If you're directly under it, you're directly under it. If you move in either direction 1 degree, how far are you away?
Well, they said that they weren't able to actually get directly under it because it seems like there was
I'm not saying anyone actually did it. I'm saying that if you're under it, you're under it. Whether someone did it or not doesn't matter. If you move 1 degree away in either direction, how far did you move away from under it? Brian said it.
16 nautical miles.
Thank you. It's over right there.
Yeah, I would say, Arwen, whoever's making this claim, unless it's established through celestial navigation, I wouldn't pay much attention to it. Unless they can show difference.
It was about that, actually. You know?
Well, then celestial navigation says when you're under it, it's directly over you. If you move 1 degree in either direction, you're 60 nautical miles away, and that's it. There's no slowing down. There's nothing else.
Yeah, they make allowances for a slowing down effect towards the horizon, but they don't make any allowances for anything Polaris or otherwise straight above you. There's no allowances made for that. So they make mathematical allowances for what they call celestial refraction, but they don't make any allowances for for the Polaris or anything else being above you.
Well,
The
because
effect
there
that
is no
Darwin's-
refraction when you're directly under it.
the effect Darwin's referring to is in well into the zone where you're told not to take readings from. So it's recognized
Right.
you've got optical effects there as opposed to just measuring the angles to the stars you're getting in. So you can't. There is a little bit of adjustment, but then you get lower and lower. You're just being told by celestial navigation, no, too many errors here.
But this
Yeah,
is like
yeah.
around the equators, right? Where Polaris is at the horizon. Is that what you're referring to again?
Well, anything, it doesn't matter. As any star disappears into the horizon and gets below that 10 degrees, and celestial navigation is saying, look, there's too many of the factors at play for you to get an accurate fix now on that star. Too much
Right.
interference.
Well, I don't think that was what I was talking about, but I do recognize that issue.
It's in
that's
that
been
it's
brought up
in that
before.
area, Arwen, that you're going to see the slowing down as you describe it.
Yeah, Aaron
But
was
in
talking
this
about.
case, it was different.
Yeah,
It was like the
it was
entire
someone
just how
north.
much the celestial axis alters as you move towards the north would alter. That was, I guess, a rumor. If there's no record of this whatsoever, even in celestial navigation, then yeah, now I'm not so sure anymore.
Yeah, it would make the distance along the longitude lines completely false, and we know they're not.
Well,
You know what I
they
mean? 'Cause they're
should
all
be
based off.
steady until you reach a certain point in the north, and then suddenly the amount the angle changes would alter. That was the suggestion.
Yeah, but the problem with the north is that let's just say you go there in the summertime, you're going to be dealing with a load of ice flows because it's all breaking up. So it makes it very difficult to go there. And in the wintertime, you won't be able to sail there because it'll all be frozen. You'll have to travel over land, over the ice. So this is just a claim thrown out there by somebody who might have heard it somewhere. It's just a claim based on nothing. I don't think it's worth our while focusing on it until we get more information on that. Whether it be true
Look,
or
if
false.
somebody's going there right now, I'd be very curious. Like, hey, could you check how much the celestial
It's a,
is? You know,
Arwen,
is it true or was it just nonsense?
no, it's nonsense because the way celestial navigation works is at your 90 degree, it's zenith right above you, and at 0, it's at the horizon, and
But
that's where they have a standard formula of 34 minutes because they say based on a standard temperature and barometer reading, they give it a 34-minute correction, but that could change. So that's why Adam said when it's 10 degrees or even 15 degrees lower, they say don't bother, just take your sightings above that and you don't have to mess around.
Yeah,
okay,
but what Arwen is, I just going to clear up, Arwen, for you, what it is you're specifically talking about. What Arwen is speaking about is Polaris in particular and getting into the point where Polaris is at your zenith. Arwen is speaking about somebody saying a couple of years ago that they could not get Polaris at their zenith, no matter how far north they went.
yes,
Something like that, isn't it, Arwen?
yes.
So it's
in
not
that
about,
direction, yes.
yeah.
Then they were never under it. That's all. They just never got under it.
Adam was going to present something there. I think I know what it was. If he wants to do it, I don't want to step on his toes.
I took it off because I just looked at the clock. So I don't, it's probably, I want to play 3 or 4 minutes and then just have a quick chat. It's from Taboo Conspiracy. So it should be okay. But it's just,
I know what it is.
yeah. I'll just save it for the after show because like we're 5 minutes away, aren't we? So, but it's just to add to talk about what you was talking about, the Southern Oceans and more importantly, maps. And yeah.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah, there might not be an after show. Unfortunately, Discord's gone a bit bonkers, which means my memory and default probably hasn't worked properly because it's gone a bit weird.
I want to hear it.
Say again?
You want me to just play it now then? Or
If you can segment it in a way that won't get in trouble, yeah, go ahead.
it's from Taboo. But I'll share screen, but it's from Ben. So and he said that we're welcome to share his stuff anytime. I'd asked him a couple of weeks ago. Previous thing I'd shared. So this is one of the Southern Ocean dudes that do the yacht races, etc., etc. And he's just talking about no magnetic declination on flat Earth. And he's just giving an example here. So what he's saying is, look, if I'm at this point off of Africa and I want to sail to the tip of Brazil, I look at my charts and I line it up and I've got to go 180 degrees. And he's got into a bit of detail in this. He's saying, but looking from where I'm going here to here, I can see that the magnetic declination lines vary. So I calculate from the chart what the magnetic declination I've got to apply is. And I've got to add 15 degrees to set my bearing. Okay, and I'll just let him talk from now because he'll explain it. He's just set this bit up and he's going to show the bearing he's going to set and the implications of this. So there you go.
If we take our example, we understand that Recife is not there, but you start from here and you do on your compass 195. So 195 is 15 degrees here, okay? And you arrive here. So the Recife, the Brazil, it's not here, but it's here, Recife. The Brazil is like that. So Brazil is not here, but in reality, it's here. And if you want to go back from Recife, Brazil, to the island, so you take your chart. The heading on the map is 0 degree.
Just for a second, Adam. Just pause it. Just because we can't play this much of someone else's. I know you say it's taboo. This isn't taboo conspiracies.
No, well, it's from here. So I think that makes the point. He's about to just do the reverse and show that it moves it the other way. But can you see the problem here? So there's information contained within the map in terms of magnetic declination that is perverting the actual true geographical position of wherever you're going. So this information with these magnetic declination lines, that's hidden information that tells you actually where the thing is to set your bearing to it, to actually get there, as opposed to using the map to get there. The map says go 180 degrees. If you're 180 degrees, you miss, look, by a massive amount. To get there, you have to go 195 degrees. Telling you the map is not a representation of the physicality.
So maybe this is what their trick is when they have shrunk the oceans down in the south.
He'll cover this. If you look at the massive magnetic declinations here, he does. It's worth. I'll post it in the chat in a minute. This link. It's worthy of watching the full half hour because he really explains how they make the bottom of the ball, how they stretch everything around the use of magnetic declination.
Hopefully you can post that link in the live stream chat as I do my my outro. So with that, I'm going to say first and foremost a huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of you who smashed the super chat, liked, commented, shared, subscribed, joined as a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member on Godzilla and all that good stuff. I've been Nathan Oakley and I will see you all in the next video.
What a lovely day!